The next up on our list is the action title Valis II, which did get both a Japanese and US release. But the first question in your mind would probably be, where is Valis I? Well, actually, Valis was a PC-88 game that did receive a port over here in the West on the Genesis, and also on the PC Engine CD in Japan, but that's not until a later episode, and that's done by Riot Games. Now, Valis II picks up where the original left off, with publisher Telenet coming back, but hiring a new developer to make the game because, well, if you're not aware, the original Valis was a rather poor title and even more poorly accepted. So they decided to attempt to fix this by hiring a different company to make this sequel. It should also be noted that there is a second Valis II, which was actually made for PC-88, MSX2, and other 8-bit computers, that has nothing to do with this one. While they do share the same characters and storyline, they are different games. Focusing back on the PC Engine CD and Turbografx CD version, this is a member of the anime-based female protagonist schoolgirl series, and I think I may be selling it short by calling it that, so the best way you can think about it is this is the genre that spawned Sailor Moon. Out of this series, you play a girl named Yuko, who in the first game was she was just a regular high school student, and when demons invaded, she helped protect them. Well, she now has the sword of Valis, although if you're familiar with Japanese culture, there is this juxtaposition of L and R's, and so, of course, in the English dub, they call it the sword of Varys, or Varis, but I prefer to think of it as Valis. That's how it was spelled. Anyway, in this sequel, you are basically running around as Yuko, trying to defend yourself against the demons that have now come after you to get the sword of Valis. Now, when you first look at this game, you'll see that there is a little bit more of a substantial gameplay going on here, much like some of the other titles we've looked at this time. You'll notice that the soundtrack is definitely trying to make the most of Red Book Audio, although while I do find the tunes catchy, they're not really making the most of the CD platform. There is also plenty of action, the controls are tight, and there's lots of attacking and platforming. At that same time, there seems to be a substantial space wasted in every single level, and you keep fighting these repeat enemies over and over again that are really close to the screen when they spawn. So you're kind of just, as you can see here, like inching along and shooting, just hoping you can take out what comes to you. Now that's no big deal when you're playing through stage 1, picking up power-ups, using special weapons, just trying to get a general feel for things. But by the time you get to stage 4, it gets a little boring. Couple that with the fact that any lead off of the main track is nothing more than a handful of ledges leading to a power-up, and you really have a game where traversing the levels is nowhere near as fun as getting to the end of them for the main event or the boss battle. This is counter to other action games that I really like of this time, such as Castlevania, or even the original Valis that was ported over onto the Famicom, if you want to look that up. What you basically get here is a series of challenges. Can you get through the level and stay alive? And then once you get to the end, you get this fun little dialogue between Yuko and the boss she's facing, such as this.
I am the Red Salamander Zaruga, one of Roglus's 12 generals. Come, warrior Vari, let's engage in combat!
Why have you come to the world of reality?
I must have your sword.
Followed by what is essentially a decent boss battle. I did really like the bosses above and beyond everything else about this game, especially because they're larger in scope, they have patterns, there are ways to best them. But then it's all kind of washed away by the fact that it's a rather lackluster action game. Add to that the fact that the special moves are unleashed by pressing up, which can very easily be done, and they're in very limited quantities. And I really did not care too much for Valis, and after a couple of attempts trying to get through stage 5, I just gave up completely. Still, there are some good ideas here. The way the power-up systems work, similar to Contra. I do like the way that you're basically learning patterns and developing them and trying to make the best of a single life so that you can have the most powered up weapon, which really felt a little bit more like a shooter, like even a shoot 'em up, you know. And granted, Yuko's not flying around like she's the ship in Gradius or anything, but it definitely borrows from those concepts, and you can see that. I also like the fact that sprites seem to change. Every single level seems to have a distinct number of enemies. They all have similar but definitely distinct traits. They are all differently drawn sprites. The backgrounds are extremely diverse, and it's also cool to see Yuko change her sprite as the levels go on, and she kind of embraces this superpower she's got more and more. And again, that works to the concept that you're going from the regular world into this demon world as you traverse deeper into the campaign. I also have to give some credit to the cutscenes. Now, we've seen various games up to this point utilize cutscenes. This kind of starts to blend everything together, where you have some action sequences, you have big boss battles, you've got utilization of the Red Book audio, and then finally you've got these new cutscenes. Now, if you've seen the previous Valis game, you'll note that the cutscenes were just talking heads. It was just like a single shot with some talking. In these, the mouths move. It's very basic animation, but it looks pretty good. And the art is maybe a little subpar from like Cobra or some various other games we've already looked at, but I would say that they are, for the most part, on the level and enhance the game. Again, Valis II is in and of itself a relatively early CD game, therefore it's still trying to find its stride, and much like many of the games we're looking at here, it's not quite there yet. But it is one of the strongest attempts, and many people keep Valis II in their collection for two main reasons. One, that there is a Western port. It's surprising to me that not only did this come over, but so did its sequel, and it got a lot of the subsequent sequels on the Genesis. But also the fact it's starting to put the pieces together and actually create games instead of just showing off this new CD technology. So for all the things it's trying to do, Valis can be commended. But as I said before, when you add all the puzzle pieces together, it's kind of more of a historical context rather than something you can appreciate as a really rock-solid game. Still, Valis II is an important part of the PC Engine or Turbografx CD, and it really starts to mold everything together into what we see as the amazing games that are soon to follow.